Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here, once again with another video, and as we know, we have a plethora of projects spread across film and TV coming our way in this new DC Universe reboot under the creative guidance of James Gunn, of course starting with Superman in the middle of July, which is about a month and a half away from this point. With a character that James Gunn has said is in the plans, but nothing really announced publicly as of yet, of course being The Flash. Of course, we're unclear on whether that is Barry Allen or Wally West, but just the Flash mantle as a whole is, a very important part of a DC universe, so you would have to assume he is involved in some discussions as of recent or in the short period to come. We just don't have anything public in regards to a project. But when you have your heroes like a Superman, like a Flash, you have your villains. And the villain side is what intrigues me the most when it comes to this new DC universe, as I feel in the DCU previously, the heroes were handled pretty well consistently. It was maybe on the villain side where they could be forgettable or transformed a lot from what you would want from the comics, or just really what villain specifically would have been chosen in a specific hero's film. And when it comes to the Flash and his villains, regardless of whether it's Barry or Wally, Reverse Flash is who many jump to, and that could easily be who we see first in this new DC universe going up against the Flash, but who else could there be? And in this particular video, this villain or threat would be a pretty awful first villain, I think. It would be better if this was a couple or even a few appearances by the Flash down the track, and that is because, as you can tell by the title, we are talking about Black Flash. Now, we have had Black Flash appear in live action previously in the Arrowverse across both The Flash, obviously, as well as Legend of Tomorrow in Season 2. Of course, in The Flash, it was more the origin of the Arrowverse's Black Flash, where Zoom turned into him, and in Legends, we saw Black Flash chasing after Reverse Flash after he's messing with time and evading death itself. But, how could James Gunn's DCU adapt Black Flash in an interesting but also familiar way in regards to the concept of what the character is? Well, let's talk about it. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions and everything we go in this video. Would you want to see Black Flash in the DCU? Do you have any different ideas? Let me know. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, drop a like. It takes 2 seconds. Now, in the comics, Black Flash isn't this super old character with 70 years of history or something like that, and has been used a super amount of times. It was created in the late 90s and pretty simply served as the Grim Reaper or embodiment of death for speedsters, with debate still being out there as to whether it exists purely for speedsters because traditional death just wouldn't be fast enough to catch them, or is just an overall side effect of the Speed Force's existence. With it being showcased in Flash Rebirth when Barry takes on the role that a simple touch from Black Flash, similar to the Grim Reaper, does in fact kill a speedster, with Black Flash also showing up in either super near-death experiences for speedsters, almost like it is watching and waiting for its time to do its job, or in actual cases where speedsters were to actually die. But in the comics of recent, over the past handful of years, I think it was really late 2010s, Black Flash took on a more protective role, if you want to put it, not when it came to speedsters in particular, watching over speedsters and trying to protect them, but the Speed Force as a whole, and this was during the story arc involving the New Forces, which was used in the Flash TV show alongside the Speed Force, that being the Strength Force, the Sage Force, and the Still Force. Due to the fact that these new forces were sapping and taking away energy and overall life from the Speed Force, the Black Flash was sent out to kill, these new holders of these forces, so they would disconnect and then return the Speed Force to what it was before. Hopefully, in some cases, Black Flash was successful. In others, mainly due to the Flash's intervention, Black Flash was not. This in turn making Black Flash, looking at the Flash going, hold on, do you want the Speed Force to die? What's going on here? But when it comes to adapting this character into live action, especially in a movie setting with this upcoming DC reboot under James Gunn, which is starting soon, how could Black Flash be interpreted? Well, I have a somewhat interesting idea that I think would be pretty cool to see, but I think the most important thing with a character like Black Flash is that it is just this mysterious entity of death. I don't think it has to be forced into a way where it is a previous speedster that died and took on this role, or it was a punishment or something like that, or whatever it might be. And they've been this way for 20 years, 50 years, 150 years, whatever it is. Sometimes something just existing purely to exist and be something makes it better and just easier, and also it adds a bit of mystery. Why does this thing exist? We don't know. But I think in regards to the actual story side of things and how things are put together, I think almost having a Flash style to an extent, I guess, Final Destination like movie would be pretty cool. But the setup would have to involve the Speed Force being in danger, this causing Black Flash to step up and be a protector in its own right. And I think having it where, throughout the course of the film or the story of the film, the Speed Force is getting weaker, but there isn't like an obvious answer or source as to why this is happening. Just that it is losing strength, it's leaking power, whatever way you want to put it. And you could have it that Black Flash acts upon this by taking out people connected to the Speed Force, but almost in like a hierarchy of sorts. So by design, the Flash in the film, because it's the Flash, whether it is Barry or Wally, would potentially be the last one or the second last one that would be taken out if it got that far, because they are more connected to the Speed Force and more important for its ongoing survival. But you would essentially have it that various speedsters, including the Flash, even though I guess hypothetically would be towards the end of the line in regards to being taken out, they are outrunning death, while at the same time learning that it is nothing to do with the amount of speedsters, but a nefarious reason. So trying to survive while also trying to solve the problem and find the real issue. I think that would be pretty cool. It sounds a bit messy, especially when you put in like actual speedsters dying or, how to work around Black Flash, where does he pop up and everything like that. But I think it sounds pretty interesting at the same time. Of course, the end result in regards to what the real reason could be as to why the Speed Force would be losing power, that in itself would be up for debate. I mean, you could go to the comics with the other forces, like I mentioned before, like the Strength, the Sage, and the Still Force, but I think that's sort of a lame reveal at the end, like, oh, it's because these random forces that we're now not really going to do anything with in this movie are the cause. It feels a bit lame and a bit rushed. An interesting thing would be if it's connected to maybe a previous entry in the Flash movies. Let's say this is the third or fourth movie in the Flash series in the DCU, something from the second, first, or maybe even third one, if this is the fourth, is, the cause of it. And it's just another speedster, maybe connected to the negative Speed Force that's sapping energy, but in like an undercover way, whether that be Reverse Flash or someone else. But that's, if you feel there's a need to connect it to something previously, you could just have it another character from the comics that has this ability, whether it is someone that the Flash fought recently and they gained access, whatever it might be. But this is why it would be very, very important for the world to be properly developed, both as a whole, just in regards to the entire DC universe, but of course in particular with speedsters and the Flash, before you bring in a character like Black Flash and do something like this, at least to this extent, where it is hunting down and legitimately killing other speedsters. Need to have some scapegoats that can be taken down, some speedsters that have popped up, whether they are specifically like, a Kid Flash or whatever, or more of a distant member of the Flash family, just someone that can be taken down, but also that they're like effective, like their deaths are effective enough that it fuels and, they're taken seriously, if you want to put it. Though you could also introduce something where their deaths can be undone if Black Flash chooses to, if Black Flash is like, oh, hold on, they weren't the reason that was doing. I feel a bit bad for killing those 3 speedsters that didn't need to be killed. So maybe he can undo them. I guess it depends who gets killed and whether it's worth or really even wanted by people to bring them back. But I guess you could reverse it if you really, really wanted to. But with a setup like this, you could have some interesting set pieces with speedsters where they have to outrun Black Flash, and it turns into, I'd say, like a pretty scary and almost like horror-like game of cat and mouse, but in super, super speed, potentially through the Speed Force or just in different things, potentially even through time if you really want to do it, where a speedster is just like, I have no idea how to run this, outrun this being, I'm the next on the chain. Do I run through time? We can get some interesting set pieces of how a speedster would desperately try to outrun death. I think that'd be pretty cool. It at the very least, it would be pretty damn unique. And I personally would watch the hell out of it just to see the different things they would do there. But as I said, I think with a character like Black Flash, it's hard, I think, to make Black Flash specifically a villain, where then like you just have to have the Flash sit down, like, how am I going to beat this and everything like that. I think it's more of just an antagonist with, another cause going on. So whoever the other actual person is that's, sapping the energy away from the Speed Force, they're like the real annoyance and threat, and person has to be taken down because they have to be stopped so that they stop taking that energy away. But then Black Flash is this like actual like threat antagonist thing you have to run away from and be wary of. So it's sort of like a split thing there, but Black Flash will be the most interesting part of the story here. Whoever is sapping the energy away, they're just the catalyst for everything that's going on and why Black Flash is doing this. But in the reality or the core of this film or the story, us, I guess, the audience, but also the speedsters and the Flash and everything like that would be dead scared of Black Flash coming after them. I think that'd be the meat and potatoes of the story in the film and just what you actually would want to watch it for. But as I said, this is one where you actually have to let the world play out, let it develop, because if this was like a first film, I'm like, I mean, you could probably still make it work. Don't get me wrong. You could still make it work, but I think you have to build up the universe a bit more, both in regards to the Flash and his, skills and everything like that, and us, the audience, having a connection there, but also I think just in regards to the amount of speedsters, if you really want to do something where Black Flash is killing other speedsters. So you'd probably put this on the back burner, but it sounds like a pretty cool idea in my opinion at the very least. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it, show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on everything we went over this video. Would you want to see Black Flash? I don't know, let me know. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.